Sage 200 uses Microsoft Windows Authentication to help manage user access. Prior to installing the program, we need to make sure that certain Windows users and groups are present. Depending on the environment, you'll either use Workgroups or Active Directory to create the accounts. In this demonstration, I'll be using Workgroups, but the process is very similar for both. Sage 200 requires a minimum of 2 groups and 2 users that need to be created prior to installing the software. Sage 200 Administrators Group, Sage 200 Users Group, Sage 200 Services User, which is used to access the Sage 200 Services web service and Sage 200 desktop client, and a Sage 200 Secured Services User, which must be a different user to the Sage 200 Services user and is used to access the Sage 200 Secured Services web service. Open Server Manager, navigate to the Tools menu and select Computer Management. In the left-hand menu, maximize Local Users and Groups and select Users. Right-click on the right pane of the window and select New User. Let's create our first user, Sage 200 Services. Create a password for the account. Make sure to tick the box labeled Password Never Expires. Now create the Sage 200 Secured Services user in the same way. Staying in the same area of Server Manager, we can now create the groups we need. Select Groups, right-click on the right pane of the window and select New Group. We will start by creating the Sage 200 Admins group, then we'll create the Sage 200 Users group. Now that we have the users and groups set up, it's time to make sure that the correct users are in the correct groups. Add the Sage 200 Services user to the Sage 200 Admins group, and any other users who need access to both the Sage 200 System Administration and Desktop Client applications into the Sage 200 Admins group as well. Any users that just need access to the Sage 200 Desktop Client should be placed in the Sage 200 Users group. And now it's time for you to practice. Complete exercises 2.1 and 2.2 before moving on to Lesson 3.